Hello, everyone. This is Pocket Size Bio, Dr. Casco. In today's video, we're going to talk about how to come up with a research topic using AI, right? Using ChatGPT. Oftentimes, I get many students telling me that they don't know how to get a research topic going, or they don't even know, what topic to look into to do some type of science or science project, right? Or whatnot. So I want to kind of just go over some general little guidelines that you can use to narrow down enough on a particular topic that you can actually begin some scientific research, right? So I've done this with my students, and it seems to help them. So maybe it can help you too. Okay, so using ChatGPT, right? And the first thing you want to do is kind of think about, in general, what topic do you like, right? Do you want to do some scientific study in biology, in physics, in geology, in chemistry, whatever topic you're interested in? Um, you're going to create a prompt that will tell ChatGPT that you're interested in this particular topic, and you specify the context of who you are in terms of a student, right? Are you an AP biology student? Are you in middle school? Are you an undergrad? Because that can trigger ChatGPT to refine it enough and make it complex enough to meet your needs, right? So, for example, let's say um, I am interested in doing scientific research on the topic of, let's say, biology, right? You're into biology, and you are particularly interested in environmental science, right? More specifically in oops, environmental science. I am a I am an AP biology student. Okay. You want to also add resources. What is available to you? That is something critical that you need to think about, right? As a high schooler or an undergrad, or um, I don't want to say grad student, because you should have the resources available, but as a high schooler or undergrad, right, in your college or university or high school, you should have some resources available to you, in the campus, lab facilities. It may be possible that some of you might not have that available. So that's something to consider when you want to do a scientific research, right? For now, let's see what ChatGPT comes out with. Okay. Again, so this is in regarding environmental science. Let's see. So that's great. Since you're taking AP biology, you already have a strong foundation in key biological concepts. For environmental science research, there are many accessible project ideas depending on your resources and interests. Do you have access to any natural areas, parks, rivers, school gardens for data collections, or are you more interested in analyzing existing environmental data? All right, climate trends, pollution levels, biodiversity databases. Okay. Are you considering a project for a science fair? Oh, definitely. This is something that you should mention. I want to publish in a high in a high school academic journal. Okay. And let's say, depending on where you live, you have forests nearby, you have a river nearby. I have a river nearby that is easily accessible. Okay. So definitely, the students that I have mentored, I um, mentioned to them, to publish either in an academic conference, right, for high schoolers, or a journal, IYRC is a very common one. The Journal of Emerging Investigators, JEI, is also one of the best journals you can publish as a high schooler, right? If you're thinking of publishing at informal academic journals, um, you need a lot more resources. So in that case, you would need to, reach out to a professor at a university that has the resources and funds to be able to manage a project for you. Generally, high schoolers do that over the summer, right? That they reach out to universities there. But if you don't have that as a possibility, then you can still do your own research, right? So let's continue on. Let's take a look what they mentioned. So we have access to a river, let's say. Okay. So several topics that you can do. All right, that's an excellent goal. Since you have access to a river, there are many potential research topics you can explore as water quality analysis. That is a pretty good one. Testing for pH, dissolved oxygen, nitrates, phosphates, microbial contamination, microplastic pollution, analyzing your water samples for the presence of microplastics, biodiversity surveys, studying aquatic invertebrates as indicators of water quality, impact of runoff, right? Investigating how rainfall or nearby um, land use affects pollution levels, algal growth and nutrients, assessing how nutrient levels influence algal blooms, right? Would you like help narrowing down your topic based on available equipment and time? Also, do you have experience with statistical analysis? Don't even worry about that. We can ask ChatGPT how to do that if you don't have any experience on statistical analysis, right? So let's say you would like to do a survey of, number three. You want to get into biodiversity, right? You want to see what kind of critters are inside of the water. Let's say I am interested in number three. Can can you elaborate more? So one of the things I want to mention is that it's good to push ChatGPT to its limits, right? Really squeeze ChatGPT with your questions to give you a good sense of what you can do. This great choice. A biodiversity survey for aquatic invertebrates is a strong project because invertebrates are excellent bioindicators of water quality. So you can start getting a sense of what you can do with this river that you have nearby. Okay. How does aquatic invertebrate diversity vary along different points of the river? Right. How does water quality um, affect invertebrate biodiversity? Right. And you're measuring different things: pH, dissolved oxygen, temperature, flow rate of the river. Right. All of the abiotic factors that you should be a little bit familiar with if you're an AP Bio student. What is the pollution tolerance index of the river based on macroinvertebrate presence, right? So these are some research questions that already they're specific enough that you can tailor a your whole research project. Okay. Some methods that you would need to do. Okay, let's say you have no idea what to do in terms of experiments. Site selection. We know already it's the river, right? But maybe you can select different points around the river, along the river, and sample. Go inside the stream or the river and collect these little insects that they dwell in the sediment. See how much biodiversity you have, at an upper part of the river, middle, downstream, and so forth. Sampling, right? There's many ways you can sample. You can collect the little insects, right? You can find examples of these on YouTube. Very, very common, right? One of the most common ones is the kick net method. Okay. Yeah, to collect little invertebrates um, of the sediment out of the river bottom, right? And then identification. So once you've collected these insects, you will need a method to preserve the insects, um, which is fine for insect populations. They're definitely not endangered, if I can say, if it's safe to say. Um, identification methods, right? There's many online keys that you can use. Macroinvertebrates.org is a very common one, right? In which you could use pictures, use a little kind of flow chart to look at characteristics of insects to identify them. And then water quality testing. And this is going to lead to my next kind of a point here on budget. What resources do you have available? Water quality testing could be, I strongly recommend if you do this type of study that you collect different forms of data. So here is prompting you to just do, collecting biotic factors to collecting life, right? Insects. But if you can do also measuring water quality, that kind of fortifies your study, right? So having different lines of measurements, right, of evidence for your study is important. It makes your study more robust, right? And then ultimately data analysis, right? So you'll need to figure out how to do um, how to process your data, right? How to process all these parameters, temperature. Are there differences in temperature at different sites of the river, right? Different levels of oxygen. Is the river murky at different levels, right? So you'll need to statistically, mathematically process these numbers to get my apologies for that, to get a particular result, right? Okay. My apologies for that. So then, yes, comparing again data analysis, comparing biodiversity across sites using Shannon Diversity Index or Pollution Index. And if you don't understand what that is, again, ask ChatGPT. Can you explain what what number five of the methods is about? Okay, data analysis, understanding biodiversity and water quality. Once you've collected and identified aquatic invertebrates at different sites along the river, the next step is to analyze your data, right? So this is already that you've collected all the different types of little insects. You can calculate several things, right? There's something called species richness and abundance, right? Or you count the number of different species. That already is results. It's already telling you something about your site, right? How many different groups of animals are there at each particular point? And then within these groups, how many individuals of each species are there? That's abundance, right? So that's telling you already some example, some form of result for your data. Biodiversity indexes, right? So to quantify biodiversity, you can use indices that summarize species richness and evenness. So evenness is how balanced the each individual population of species is. Do you have an incredibly high amount of one species and a low amount of the other, or are they equally balanced, right? So there's several indexes. In a nutshell, they're kind of like scores that tell you how biodiverse a location is. Right. So you have a Shannon Diversity Index that you can, take a look here. You have Simpson's Diversity Index. So there's many, many types of diversity indexes. And again, you can use ChatGPT, go further. How can I calculate this? Explain more in detail. Okay. So that's one way that you can collect information, results, right? And discuss. And then there's another um, kind of factor that you can study, okay, which is pollution tolerance index. So this is again, a score, right? Some invertebrates are very sensitive to pollution and then others aren't. So depending on the population that you get of invertebrates, that tells you something about the river. Okay. So the more you have, the more of a particular insect you have that is very sensitive to the population, sorry, to pollution, that means that the river is pretty clean, right? But if you're having a sample of insects that are very tolerant to pollution, right? Most likely that the water is very polluted, right? So you're going to have a low PTI or you can have high PTI, right? Pollution tolerance index. When, you'll have to go sample, collect many insects, count, identify, and then, calculate. And you can get a sense of how clean the water is, right? And uh, you can process all these numbers very basic with basic statistical methods. Compare biodiversity between sites using t-tests or ANOVA. If you're an AP Bio student, you probably are familiar with these general statistical methods. If you're undergrad, definitely you should be. But again, there's YouTube has a lot of resources on very simple ways to understand this, and you just process the data, right? So with this is already a potential topic that you can do just by using GPT. Okay. Now I want to talk about uh, resources. Okay, so let's say you have you have a river nearby, but you don't have lab grade resources to measure water quality. Okay. So these are something that you need to think about, but you do have a budget, right? Let's say of $100, $200, $50. It depends. Okay. Um, you can mention, I don't have access to lab grade water quality measuring tools. What can I use? Okay, so one of the things that I want you to really um, think about is pushing Chat GPT. Give it the conditions that you have, in your particular situation, and it could give you some good examples. Um, in terms of measuring, water parameters, there's water quality test strips that you can get in little like aquarium shops or pet stores and things like that that measures certain things like pH, nitrates, nitrites, thermometers we can find all over the place, pH paper, uh, and whatnot. Now, the level of scientific measurement will be a little bit lower, but it's still doable, right? For a high school student um, that is quite limited with resources, this is adequate enough. I have seen students do this before, have published work, in different types of experiments. So it is doable. Okay. Um, there's some affordable dissolved oxygen kits that you can find on Amazon, right? If you have access to Amazon. And some things you can actually make yourself, like a Sechi disc that you measure the turbidity. It's a little disc that as you go, you lower it down into the water, and depending how murky the water is, it'll disappear, right? Or it'll just fade out of sight. Okay, so that could give you a sense of the turbidity or water clarity. Okay, so these are some things that you could think about and that you can purchase depending on your budget. Okay, so in a nutshell, this is how you can narrow down specifically enough to get a sense of a detailed project, the methods, and how to, execute it. Okay. Going back into methods, let's say. So I mentioned about water quality testing. Okay. Sampling. Okay. Let's go with that. Can you explain? Oops. Sampling more in detail. Let's say you don't know how to sample, or you want more specificity on sampling. Okay. Sampling conditions, right? Definitely you want to try to choose more than one place to sample in your area. Select 3 to 5 different sites along a river. Consider upstream versus downstream. Pick sites with different conditions. So all of these are things that you can think about, right? Do you want to compare slow moving water area versus a fast moving water area along the river, right? Um, you can even compare lake versus rivers if you want, right? That can add depth to your study. Time considerations. If you have a good amount of time that you can work in this study, any particular study, think about time, right? Throughout the year, biodiversity changes in population sizes, between the winter, between the spring or the summer, spring and fall. There's so much more context that you can provide, right? Sample at the same time and day, avoid sampling after heavy rain. Definitely, yeah, for safety reasons, but also it can give you inaccurate results. Okay. Sampling techniques. One of the most common ones is the kick net sampling, right? You basically get any butterfly net. You don't have to have any um, uh, formal kick net, right? But just a net, a butterfly net, and then a bucket where you can, collect or a tray that you can transfer the samples that are being in the water. Place the net facing upstream in shallow water. Knee deep is ideal. Disturb the river. Sorry, disturb. Sorry, the riverbed in front of the net with your feet or a stick for 30 to 60 seconds. See what kind of insects come out. Larval insects, by the way, I want to mention. Lift the net carefully. Transfer the contents to a tray. Sort and identify. Okay. So this method helps, collect many invertebrates. It's good for assessing biodiversity. Hand picking and rock scrubbing. I definitely recommend using like gloves for this, rubber gloves that you can manipulate if you're scared of touching any of these larvae. And again, scrape off using your fingers, the gloves, or a brush and whatnot. Okay. One way or another, again, and there's several others, right? One way or another, you're gonna collect insects and you're gonna want to identify them. You'll need to preserve them. Okay, trust me, you have to preserve insects or else they're gonna start smelling bad, decomposing. So, um, yeah, you would preserve generally for these type of study, you can use, rubbing alcohol. Just, in a cup, you can put all your insects in there and just pour rubbing alcohol. 70% ethanol is fine. Okay, let's see. Um, let's say you don't know how to preserve. You have no idea of preserving. How do I preserve the insects? Okay. Sorry that my language is just deteriorating as the video progresses there. Temporary storage. I do not recommend temporary storage. It's better to do an actual preservation. Um, for the majority of students of high schoolers, alcohol is probably what's most commonly available for you. Glycerin is a little bit more difficult to come across. Um, Dry preservation, freezing methods. That does work, but you want to keep the morphology or the anatomy of the insect as well as you can, right? I would go for number two, alcohol preservation using 70% out rubbing alcohol or ethanol. right? You can place the specimens, in jars and whatnot, um, and whatever, container you have, basically. You can keep them in the fridge, um, and it prevents decay. So now you have your preservation method. Okay, so now you have your animals. Your animals are preserved. You can identify them, you can count them, and then you can do your data analysis. So it's relatively simple to kind of narrow down on a research topic. Okay, and if you if you want to look deeper into this, right? You can look into academic literature, like go to Google Scholar and see if there has been any studies in your area regarding a river, right? It may be possible that nobody has ever sampled, right? Um, this biodiversity and water quality in your area. You might be the first, so you can add a degree of novelty to your study. So that's an important aspect to take a look at it in terms of especially in environmental science studies, right? It can be quite unique in terms of your area, right? So take a look. Uh, try ChatGPT to narrow down on a research topic. Okay, hopefully this was helpful for you, and I'll see you in another video. Thank you very much.